Hey there, and welcome back to another episode of A Cup of Joe. My name is Joe Escobedo, and our next guest needs no introduction. If you are on LinkedIn, you're probably following him already, but I'd like to introduce Dan Knowlton, co-founder of Knowlton, to the show today. Thanks for being on the show, Dan.
Thanks for having me, Joe. Excited to be here.
Awesome. So what I was mentioning before the call is that I've obviously been following you and your brother on LinkedIn for a while now. Funny story is I had no idea you guys were brothers when I started watching your videos. I was just
Lots of people say that.
I was like, these guys have amazing chemistry. I was like, how do you get that? And then
We've known each other for like 28 years, so
I was like, man, these guys must be like, old friends or something like that. And then I had to dive in. I was like, oh, they're brothers. I was like, my goodness. So
we have the same last name.
Yeah. That was a dead giveaway when I saw the Knowlton boys.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think one of the reasons I wanted to catch up with you is because you produce some of the most creative, if not the most creative content I'm seeing now on LinkedIn. It kind of breaks away from everything else. So I want to get your thoughts on why take a very different approach from like a lot of the very corporate stuffy things you see to doing something very out of the box and different.
Yeah, I think nowadays on social, there's so much noise, and a lot of people look up to like other marketers and what they're doing, and then try and do that because they think that that's working. And I'm not kind of poo-pooing on that. We did that, and we've done that in the past. Like in our space, the classic sort of text at the top of a video, and a square video. And we've done that in the past, and we've tried so many different things. We've tried so many different things. Some things have done all right, some things haven't. And from my experience, what we're doing currently is, in terms of generating business, is the most successful thing we've ever done. And I think it does come down to being different, being unique, producing content that's entertaining, because, there's just so much boring corporate rubbish content on LinkedIn that you stand out when you produce something a bit different. So that's kind of the route we've gone down.
That's very interesting. You said it has an impact on the business as well. You said you've never gotten so much business. Can you share more about that? Or are people, reaching out to you after seeing the post, or what's the feedback you're getting?
Yeah. So never before have we seen such a clear pattern between posting a video on LinkedIn and people contacting us saying they want to do business with us, and then setting up our Zoom calls, and then producing a pitch and that kind of thing and converting them. So now whenever we post a video, that kind of style, we get probably 5 to 10 people who want to set up a call to do business with us, and then we're converting sort of 38% of prospects into customers. So now it's a very, and a lot of those people are, I'd say 75% of those people getting in touch are mentioning the video. So are literally saying through LinkedIn, I saw this video on LinkedIn, can we have a chat? And then the other 25% aren't mentioning the video, but it's very clear because it's direct. They've commented on our video, and then it's directly after we posted it. So yeah, it's just, it's never been more clear than producing a video on LinkedIn and then leads being generated. So it really does work. It's the most effective form of marketing we've ever done. Literally, so we're just going all in now, and yeah, continue to do it. But one thing we're being careful of, we don't just want to become the company that does sketches on LinkedIn. Before, we see other people who have risen to fame for doing something a bit innovative, and then they've continued just to do that one thing forever, and they become stagnant, and you see their content and you're like, oh, it's another one of those. So we're constantly innovating and thinking of new creative ideas, and we've got lots of exciting new things in the pipeline, which I'm excited to be sharing with you guys.
Awesome. So you don't have to give away any spoilers or anything like that, but I'd love to get your process around kind of how you come up with the creatives. What's the whole process behind that?
Yeah, so it's funny. Lloyd and I go for like lunchtime walks, and we actually discuss this stuff. And because we talk about this in our podcast, and we actually get, one thing we said is, the normal approach to get inspiration for your industry is to look at who are the top people in your industry and look at what they're doing, and then get inspiration from that. Like marketing, for example, Gary Vee. Stephen Bartlett's another guy in our space, look at what they're doing and do that. And we've done that in the past, like I've said. However, now what we do is we get inspiration from any type of industry and any type of content out there. So for example, recently we've been getting inspiration from TikTok videos, trends on TikTok. So for example, there was a trend like choose your character, where there was you play Smash Bros music and you go like this, and there's different characters. So and we did a version for LinkedIn, choose your LinkedIn character. So we sort of, very simple video, dressed up in different outfits and said different characters like Mr. Salesy. I can't remember the other ones, but then you sort of go like that, and it looks like a traditional game. Now that isn't a unique approach, but we had people. It got like 25,000 views, hundreds of comments. We generated, like I mentioned, 7 to 10 leads from it, and converted a big piece of business from that video that we've just had to hire someone new.
Nice.
And really that inspiration just came from TikTok. Everyone on LinkedIn's like, wow, how did you come up with this concept? It's like we saw something that was working on TikTok and did it in a business sense on LinkedIn. So, and like another example, we've just shot a new sketch the other day, which is like a LinkedIn support group for people that send salesy direct messages. And we got that idea from an ad campaign from a French company that randomly someone sent to us in WhatsApp, and it was really funny and creative, and we've sort of emulated that in this new video we've done. So, yeah.
I think it's a very clever approach, because at the end of the day, like you said, a lot of the B2B stuff, a lot of stuff you see on LinkedIn is pretty much the same. So going to channels which are probably more B2C, if you look at Instagram, TikTok, that have a bit more entertaining videos, dare I say it, than on LinkedIn. I actually saw the original video, or one of the original videos of the video game as well, and I saw yours about a week after. I was like, okay, connecting the dots. But I think it's brilliant. It definitely places you guys in a different kind of field than everyone else. And I think the other thing I like that you guys do, I don't know if this is intentional or if it's come over the years, is that two things. I think the first thing that I really like about you guys is that you look like you're having fun. It looks like you are enjoying the process, like you're enjoying it. Whereas you see a lot of people, when it looks like they're like have a gun to their head and they're forced to do the content.
I guess I know what you mean. I guess for us, it makes it easier because it's our business. And one, we are actually enjoying it. I'm not very good at acting, so if I wasn't enjoying it, you'd know about it. And two, it's our business. So we know that doing that, creating that content, we enjoy it anyway, even if it didn't generate any business, but we know that generates business, and that helps us grow our business. It helps us hire more people, make more money. So it's exciting to be producing the content, so and it's funny, like you say, when we work with some companies, their founders are trying to force their teams to do marketing or to be involved in videos, and it's that exact feeling of they're like don't want to be there, they're being made to be in a video. So yeah, I get that.
Yeah, there's one particular tech company, I won't mention the name, but it looks like they're reading from like a cue card or something like that. You can tell like they're recorded from the phone, but it's like we're very excited about the upcoming session. It's like, oh, gosh, like hostages or something like that. I feel so bad.
It's funny because it's like they're doing the right thing, trying to create content, but it just doesn't. There's a mismatch between the message and what the people actually reading it.
Exactly. So I think you bring up a good point, and this is one of the questions or challenges I get from clients, is that it's easy for you and I because it's our business. So like we're already like devoted, we're already into it. But let's say that you are not, an entrepreneur. You work for a multinational. I'm sure some of your clients are larger firms. How do you get them really involved with something that may not necessarily be what they wanted to, but get them involved in content creation?
So for us, one approach that we've taken is to get actors involved. So for example, with Wall, the Clipper brand, and actors and normal people. So I'll give you an example of each. So for example, we've worked on a number of campaigns for Wall, the personal grooming brand. And we did a whole big video shoot where we actually hired actors to play certain roles so we could produce this entertaining sketch that ultimately sold and promoted their flagship product, the Aquablade. But yeah, we got actors involved because the marketing team wouldn't want to get involved. And the other approach we've taken is to for sort of product-based businesses is to send their products to people and get real people to test the products, to do unboxings and reviews. And we kind of produce guidance for those people to what we want them to talk about. We think about the objections to people buying that product and get the people in the video to talk about those objections. So if we know that this product says its battery life is 60 minutes with a 10-minute charge, we know people are going to be thinking, is that really right? Is that really correct? Oh, I don't think that's true. So we get the people to test the product, show that it works, and say, oh, it has got a 60-minute charge. Oh, it is good, So yeah, there's kind of two approaches. And I'm not a believer in trying to force people who don't want to be in a video to be in a video. Like, I think even if a company came to us and said, we want our staff to be in the video, and we got the feeling that they really hated it and it wasn't coming across well, that's just a waste of money because they look like the people reading the script, like you said, Joe. So, yeah.
I think you bring up another good point. One of which is, it's off the top of my head. So the point of, I'm going to sound really cynical today, but this is end of the day here, so I'm going to have fun with it.
Go on.
another one of those videos, he talks about, having real people. I've seen a lot of those videos, and I get they're always the YouTube pre-roll ads. I get a lot of educational self-help stuff now. I don't know why it's targeting me.
I get that.
But it's like real people, and then the way they're speaking, it's like, oh, this transformed my life. I'm like, when was the last time you heard somebody, you had a conversation with somebody like, this product transformed my life? Like,
yeah.
Who the hell talks like that? I
don't get who buys this stuff, because I get served those ads as well. The whole like, become a millionaire in 3 days, and like, who is buying that stuff? Because someone is, for them to be doing it. But man, I hate those ads.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think the way you guys are doing about it, is very different. It feels very authentic. It feels like it's something that you enjoy doing. I'd love to hear more of some examples. You mentioned wall, and I have a wall. I'm very devoted client. So if you need like an actor or something like that, I can pose in the background.
Yes. Reach out to me after this call. Yeah, read off a script.
Exactly.
I like this product.
I like this product. This revolutionary new product.
Oh god.
I'm sure that would sell a lot. But what kind of clients do you work with? What are some of the things you do? I mean, I see LinkedIn, but I don't see much in terms of like on the business side. It'd be good to find out.
Yeah, so you see our content on LinkedIn, but most of our client campaigns are run through sort of paid Facebook and Instagram ads. And really, we've worked with just a whole variety of different companies. From there's a brand of apple we've been working with for like 3 years, like literally the apple you eat, a UK-based brand of apple that we've produced a whole load of creative concepts for them. They're called Cameo Apples, so you can look at them on Facebook. That we've produced some really wacky video ad campaigns for them. Other things like we've worked with a local climbing center for a launch campaign. We've worked with gyms. We've worked with, we've just signed up a therapist, a London-based therapist, a famous guy that's on TV, that's on lots of TV shows, is like the psychologist on the TV show, that for people that are really scared of stuff like spiders and stuff. He's got this whole range of therapy companies that we're helping him with. Yeah, just a real mixed bag. But I guess that the clients we really, really like working with and we want to attract more of are the ones that let us be as creative as we want. Because lots of companies come to us thinking they want a boring piece of content. So can you produce this video ad for us? And they're kind of telling you what they want, but we know that's not going to work. So it's trying to then communicate to them, that's great, but look at the examples of these types of ads that people actually want to consume and how they've driven trackable ROI. This is how we've done any work, so why don't you come with this approach? And yeah, so really a whole range of different companies.
So I think that's a very good point in terms of, like you said, educating the client, because a lot of times, like you said, they'll come with this preconceived notion, this idea that may be terrible. So you said one of the things you do is kind of show them other examples. Is that how you entice them to break out of the box?
Yeah, I think like what's great now is we've built up a number of different examples, case studies of brands we've worked with and delivered trackable ROI from different industries. So yes, we entice people with that. We entice people with our sort of awareness-based content, the stuff that you've seen, the sketches and that kind of thing. But yeah, the kind of case studies are what we, once a customer shows interest, we'll then pitch to them. At the moment, we're doing kind of virtual Zoom pitches, which is quite an interesting pivot we've had to do. Normally, I'm used to going to a company and delivering, there's a different dynamic to being in a room with potential customers and getting that vibe. Whereas when you're on a video screen. But to be honest, I've been fine tuning my approach, and I feel like I'm getting a lot better because we're converting more business through Zoom, which is interesting. I never thought I'd be doing that. But yeah, those case studies, when you get to a point when you've managed to build those examples up, it really helps selling your service. It makes it easier because you can say, hey, look at this brand that looks like you. Here's what we've done. Here's the results we've achieved. When you first start out and you haven't got any clients, it's very difficult to convince people that you do good stuff because you haven't got examples of it. Whereas, that adds a whole other element to helping you grow and convert more business when you've got examples.
It's a very good point. And you mentioned you're selling a lot more via Zoom. So I'm going to play the role of the client, and I want you to play the role. No, I was kidding.
Okay. Do it.
Like,
God.
I'm game.
Put me on the spot.
I'm just kidding. But I would love to find out kind of like, you probably, like you said, you fine-tune the process. What are some of the things that you've done to improve your pitch process via Zoom?
Yeah, so really having a phone call before and finding out as much information as we can to kind of qualify the customer. We use like a 3-pronged approach to qualifying a customer, an acronym called MAN, means, authority, needs. Do they have the money? Are they the authority? And it's a pretty basic principle. Do they actually have a need for your product and service? So we go through an initial phone call to really scope that out. And I think over the years, I've got a lot better at that. Because I remember when I first started and I was young and naive, I used to just drive like 5 hours away to meet someone that had a £30 budget. So now it's a very, also through like experience, you get to get an understanding from when you're having an initial chat. If someone's sort of just picking your brain, or if they're serious about investing, and if they're a good fit as well. So there's that kind of prospecting approach, that initial phone call to find out. I think I've tailored that to get better at knowing who's the right kind of person to take to the next stage. And then I guess in terms of improving the pitch via Zoom, we've got way better at producing better designed pitches that look more professional. So it's not just a PowerPoint we flung together. It's like a nice, really nicely designed, branded pitch deck that we go through. Also just having, now, like I mentioned, having more examples to share. So it's a much easier sale, I found recently, when we've got these brilliant examples from some of the biggest brands in the world that we've helped. That just adds a whole other level of credibility. Whereas, 3 years ago, the most credible client we worked with was kind of like a local hotel, which is good at the time because then you're saying, look, we've helped this local hotel. But when you're pitching to global brands and you've worked with other global brands, then it makes that process easier. And I think just getting used to the dynamic of being on a Zoom call, trying to still build up that rapport, not just diving straight into the pitch, but trying to have a bit of a chat before. So it's not just, hello, here we go, here's the pitch. It's more like, without being too cheesy, you don't want to like look like, oh, let's do an icebreaker. It's just, it's through experience, I think. But again, I'm not perfect. Like there's lots of ways I can improve as well. So that's just.
I think those are some really good points. One thing that I would love to get your thoughts on, and you mentioned earlier, is deciding whether someone is trying to pick your brain versus actually do business with you. So what are some of the things that you kind of pick out to decide?
I think, good question. So I literally had a call like this yesterday. So I'll give you a bit of context first of all. So from our perspective, anyone that gets in touch, we'll have a look at their business and just to do an initial pre-qualifying, just to know if it's worth going to the next stage. And most of those we will go to the next stage because you never know by just looking at a website. So we'll set up that call. And then I think it's our, from my experience, asking their objectives, asking a bit about the company. And from answers to those questions, you start to paint a picture as to how big the company is, what kind of budgets they'd be investing in marketing. And also very, very early on, communicating budget. So communicating, oh, okay, so great to hear your objective. This is what you're trying to achieve. Normally, to help clients like you, we can do X, we can do Y, we can do Z. You know, ballpark figures of that support is X, Y, Z, just to start off to check we're on the same wavelength. Then if you mention that very early on, the people that are gasping at your pricing, you know that it's definitely not a good fit. So you can, you know, yesterday I had a call with a guy, complete startup. I mentioned early on, and he said, look, we haven't really got much budget. And, you know, I'm not a douche. I'm not going to say, go away then. And I tried to give him some free advice and say, look, if I was a startup and I didn't have much budget, I'd be doing X, Y, Z, and try to go down that approach. And then other calls you have, you realize very early, you mentioned, look, we support brands like you in this way, ballpark figures at X, Y, Z, and they go, oh, this is interesting. You're like, great. And then you can go through the other areas of qualifying. So just mentioning that very early on prevents you wasting time. And I think it's always difficult to talk about money. It's always awkward. But when you're confident in what you deliver, when you know and you've got examples of what you deliver works, you know, I used to be very nervous to talk about money and be a bit like, ooh, but now, you know, it's just a thing you do because we deliver this service that's proven to deliver trackable ROI. This is the investment fee. We know you're going to get a return because we've done it in the past. Is that something you'd like? And then they're either going to take it or not. So yeah, I guess there's just some thoughts on that.
You know, I think you bring up a very good point of kind of setting expectations, and the expectations could be the budget that they'll have to invest in, rather than, you know, later in the conversation say, oh, you know, they're very excited, this will cost you $100K, for example, and they're like, there's no way in hell I can afford that.
Yeah, exactly. I know I mentioned a lot about budget. Then it's not just about budget.
Yeah.
Like the other two areas, are they the authority? So just checking and asking the question like, are you the only decision maker in this process? Are that other stakeholders involved? You know, I've tripped up early days doing that, where you get right to the end, invest all this time, and then you realize they're not the decision maker. The decision maker isn't bought in and hasn't even decided a budget for this. So that's the other area. And then the other area is like just checking they have a need, which is a bit of a strange one, because you'd think that, you know, when you own a business, you want to sell to everyone. You know, you want to buy my products and services, I'll sell to you. Whereas from our experience, we know not everyone is the right fit for us, even if they want to be. Like we've now turned down a lot of business because from our experience, some companies just aren't the right fit in the approach that we would take. So we're now very honest and open. Don't just take everything on. We really vet a potential customer to check that the fit is right before going ahead. But early days, we didn't have that. We didn't have the benefit of being able to do that. We just took on everyone because we were smaller and, you know, we needed to pay the bills, which we still do, but, you know, it's a bit different as you grow a bit.
I know exactly how you feel. I think when I started the business, I was scrambling. I would take on anything. I was working like, you know, 14 hours a day. It's like anyone would give me money. I'm like, oh, sure, I'll do it.
Yeah. It's important to say no, isn't it? It's important to say no.
It is. And I think that has been, if I look at my own business, main deciding factor is we pick who we want to work with. Like you said, not only with the project, but also the person. I think for us is very important, that chemistry, because we try to look at it from a longer term perspective. You know, if this person likes us or the team likes us, then they'll bring us on for other projects and they'll introduce us to other geographies or business units. So that's the approach that we've taken to expand the business, is focus a lot on the fit within person. Now, obviously that person could leave or that team could leave, but we found that they've taken us with them a lot of the times. But yeah, it's one of those things that saying no is powerful. And I think need is definitely the most difficult one. I think I still struggle with that, because, you know, you could have someone that's like, oh yeah, we really need this, or, you know, yeah, it's very important. And then all of a sudden, you know, you don't hear from them back for a while, and it's like, was it really that important, or was it just kind of like, so how you really sniff that out? Because it's something that I haven't really gotten to the bottom of.
Yeah, I think it's asking the right questions, the right probing questions in terms of what they want to achieve. So let's say, for example, that we're a digital marketing agency, but we specialize in paid social video ad campaigns. We don't do like SEO or anything like that. So if you come to us and you're like, oh, I've seen what you're doing, really interested, we'd love to work with you, can we find out more? And I'm like, okay, Joe, what are you trying to achieve? What's the objective of all this? And they're saying, we want to rank higher in Google. And I'd be like, okay, we're not the company to do that for you, because that's not the approach we take. I think but to your point, sometimes people look like they think they've got a need for what you do, and are even like, yeah. You know, so many times we're about to do a podcast episode, record this week about people. And one of the people we're going to talk about was a guy that, I'm not mentioning any names, but he literally came to our office, knocked on the door. This was like months ago. He said, I've been driving around. I've built a few local properties and I want you to help me sell them, produce a load of content and do a paid ad campaign. He came up, we chatted through, and literally there and then he was like, we said rough pricing. He was like, right, I want to go ahead. I'll sign the agreement, email it to me now. And we're like, this all happened in like 20 minutes. And it was like an okay sized project. And we were like, did that just happen? A guy walks in and like, he was so keen and we weren't pushing him. And he was like, I want to do it. And then it ends up, send him an agreement to sign, go through a follow-up process. He just goes quiet. And then like months later, he's like, oh, I can't, our boss has said we need to put things on hold. And it's like, he looked like he was the decision maker. He was this and that, but I guess, we still struggle with knowing all the time, because someone can be very good at looking like they're going to go ahead. I guess the one thing that I've changed is to not celebrate the deal's not done until they sign on the dotted line. Like, even if someone's saying, yes, I'm 100% doing this, I don't get excited until I send them the signed agreement and they return it. That's when we pop the bottles, because, you know, like that's when we celebrate. Because before, I used to just celebrate if someone said they were interested in working with us, like early on. And now it's a different story.
So that was one of those, so I listened to the podcast, and that was one of the stories that I remember is the premature, I won't repeat the word, I forget what it was. But like,
premature ejubilation or something.
Ejubilation, that's what it was, yes. I think I was definitely guilty of that as well. Yeah.
I think though, when you're...
Sorry,
go on, sorry. I was just going to say, when you've got a sales role, for example, my role in the business is very much sales and marketing for our business. The biggest buzz I get is when someone says, I want to go ahead with that project. So like, you know, when someone sounds like they're going to go ahead, it's exciting, but then through experience, you start to realize that it's not done until they sign on the dotted line. Yeah,
absolutely. Is that Lloyd in the background?
Yeah, Lloyd's just joined us.
Just joined. Okay, awesome. Awesome. So I think I am not an expert in paid marketing, but I'm going to get kicked by the folks who are watching this who are. What's the process you take when it comes to, you mentioned trackable ROI from the ads and the content you create?
Sure. So the first step, the most important step that people don't spend enough time on is, and it's a traditional marketing approach, is understanding who you're trying to sell to. You know, in all the books, they say this, you need to know who you're targeting. But for us, and you'll understand why in a second, it's so important in terms of how the whole campaign's set up, because ultimately you need to reverse engineer that person and the decision-making process they go to buy a product or service. And then you need to create the content that maps to that decision-making process that ultimately makes them aware of who you are and what you do, and then communicates the benefits of how you can help them, helps overcome objections, and then eventually nudges them to actually take the action and buy or a product or service or get in touch with a company. So we start by understanding that process and doing a lot of research around the decision-making process that person takes to buy a product or service. And then we start to map out the content we need to produce to attract, convince, and convert them at the different stages of the funnel. So like big awareness pieces, an entertaining kind of sketch potentially that draws the user in. Like the wall example, if you go on their Facebook page, you'll see one of those that we've created for them. Or it might not be that. It might be like an emotion triggering storytelling piece that grips the viewer and draws them into this story that's related to a problem they've got that the product helps them solve. And then like middle of funnel content, case studies, content that overcomes objections, content that answers questions that they'll have before buying. So we produce all these different layers of content. Once we've produced the content, we then set up the campaign in Ads Manager. So utilize different ways of targeting those people at each stage of the funnel. So start by split testing a load of audience at the top of the funnel, then utilizing remarketing to remarket to people who have showed interest at each stage of that funnel. And then the third step is just continuing to monitor and optimize the campaign, because we've realized even ways we're using ads and targeting that worked 6 months ago don't work now. So we could try and it's a constant testing phase and tweaking to get the best results. And then at the end, out pops the customer and out pops the trackable sales. There obviously needs to be integration with the pixel and things on the website to be able to track the sales. That's a step I kind of missed out. That's right at the start, the setup and onboarding. Yeah. But yeah, I hope that explains it in a bit of detail.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have one more question and then a random thought for you. First of all, the question. The question was, I think the most difficult part where a lot of people fail is not so much the latter, but the former. Like you said, really understanding the customer and that whole decision-making process. So how do you kind of unearth those insights and get that process?
So a couple of ways. One, so the first step we'd take is, do we know anyone that's that person? Right. So that's the lowest hanging fruit. So do we, like, for example, with the Apple company, the target market were mainly like females, 40-year-old females that go shopping to do the weekly shop. Do you know any of those people? Yes, we do. So we can very easily call them as a friend or it's a family member and start to ask some questions to get an understanding that literally get instant answers, that kind of way. The second kind of approach is to then think, oh, maybe if we don't know those people, can we reach out to, for example, we did a professional campaign with Wall, which was promoting their professional products to barbers. So we reached out to barbers to figure out what's the language, what's the lingo, how do they chat in a barbershop, so that we can then produce copy and creative that kind of taps into that. So then it's the second approach is, if you don't know anyone that's in that demo, finding people and reaching out to them. You can do focus groups. Some people are just willing to answer some questions on a call. So whatever kind of a more formal approach works that way. And then the third approach is to do research online. So to look at groups where these places hang out. So for example, for our agency, we target marketing teams from brands. That's who we really want to reach out to, because we want to work with brands. And the decision makers within brands, in terms of the agencies they hire, are the marketing teams. So we already have a deep understanding of marketing because we're in it, but also being part of other Facebook groups to do with marketing, you start to get an understanding of how people talk, the language they're using, what they're kind of talking about, and you can start to understand different nuances in that area that you can kind of tap into. Another example is for us, a big part of our strategy moving forward is agency partnerships. So partnering with other agencies to help to give each other business based on your specialism. So there's a book called Agencynomics, which is all about agency growth. There's a community online full of agency owners. I'm now part of that. I'm starting to get an understanding of and build relationships with those agency owners. So yeah, understand who you're trying to reach, and then see if anyone is in that group and you can speak to them, and then reach out to people you don't know to actually ask them and get to know them a bit.
There's so many good pieces in that. I think I'll have to do a whole recap, but I think one thing I'd love to get your thoughts on is the agency partnerships. But before that, I have a random thought that I just want to throw in there just to mix things up. So when I first jumped on the call, I thought that was a virtual background that you had.
I know this is real.
Because I've been on five calls in the past hour, and they've all been like virtual backgrounds, so I'm getting confused now.
It's real.
But then I thought it'd be funny if like that was your virtual background. It's just Lloyd walking back and forth in the background, like just going to the fridge.
It's a pre-recorded video, yeah.
A pre-recorded video of him just like getting some fruit and coming back and eating.
I've seen those though. People are doing those Zoom background videos.
Yeah. Okay, so this is real. This is the real office. But yeah, it could be an idea for the next video. I want to get your thoughts, like I said, on agency partnerships, and we're close on time. But because a lot of times people think it's a very competitive nature, like, oh, you're always competing against different agencies and stuff like that. But I want to hear your thoughts in terms of how you're collaborating with different agencies to maybe refer business or
Sure.
get business.
Sure. So the first point is, if anyone's watching this or listening to this is interested in this, buy the book Agencynomics and read that, because we learned so much from that book. And one of the things we learned from that book, one tiny kind of nugget was, look at all of the business you've generated in the last year, and figure out where most of it came from, and do more of that, which is just really, really simple and sounds stupid. But when we actually looked at this, we looked at some of the biggest deals we'd won and the biggest projects we'd won in terms of revenue. And they were because other agencies had recommended us to the client, because without even knowing it, by accident, we've built relationships with agencies over the years, just through like speaking at their events, through just being small and wanting to get to know other agency owners, and then started to do good stuff. And then they recommend us. So we looked at it and thought, wow, like 5 of the biggest projects we've won in the last year were because XYZ agencies have just recommended us. So it got us thinking, we need to actually start doing things proactively to build those relationships, because currently we've done nothing proactively. It's just happened. So I guess looking back at the things we've done, and then we can go on to moving forward, what we're going to do. So just going to like events where other agency owners go. I know during COVID times that's a bit weird, but when you can do that, that's one thing. Just meeting people and building relationships where those agency owners would be. Other things we've done, like I've spoken at their events for free. So they've reached out and said, can you speak at this event? I've spoken at their event. We've collaborated and created content together with other agencies. And yeah, just and referred them business. So for example, like other SEO agencies, we don't do SEO. So agencies we trust and we've built a relationship, we'll always give them a call and say, hey, this person wants SEO, we'll pass them your way without expecting anything in return. And I guess we've been doing those kind of things over the years, which has helped build those real authentic relationships. But in terms of moving forward, I'm definitely going to be, when I can, going to more agent events where agencies are, more communities where agencies are, like that Agencynomics book and community I mentioned, they do events. I'm going to be going to those and meeting up with people, reaching out to other agencies and passing on business and understanding more about them, building those relationships. So yeah, just being way more proactive now that we realize that that's a great way to not just help our business, but to serve other businesses as well. We're going to be focusing more on that.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very good point. And I think just layering on top of that, if I could share my own experience, I think that's how we kind of started the business, at least getting initial clients, was through partnerships. So in our case, it was either other agencies or other training companies, or one that's kind of taken off is tech companies. I don't know how it came to be like that, but we have partnered with LinkedIn, Hootsuite, Adobe, and several others. So we've been on their webinars, I've spoken at their events, I've done some work with some of their clients, and that was something that just happened. I don't know. I spoke at one event, which had a lot of like brand side people, and then one of the sponsors there was Hootsuite. And I got along with the GM, we started talking, and then they introduced us to some clients, and et cetera, et cetera. So that was something that I hadn't really thought about it. Going back to, I hadn't been very proactive as well, so I need to be better at that. I think one thing I've been trying to do more cognitively is just jumping on quick calls like this with fellow entrepreneurs, agency owners, and getting a pulse in terms of how the business is doing, sharing tips. There was one guy who is very, very good at like Facebook ads. Like he's ex-Facebook. So we would exchange notes because there's no competition whatsoever. I don't do any kind of B2C work. I focus all on B2B, whereas he's all B2C. So I think those, like you said, complementary players could be a nice fit, whether it's business or even just getting ideas, like you said, in terms of like sales, marketing, what's worked, what hasn't worked. So it's something that I'm just now doing after a couple of years. I'm guilty of. But yeah,
it's interesting how things just happen, and then you realize, oh, that was working, and I didn't. Now it's time to do the proactive approach.
Exactly. I think for better or worse, I mean, COVID was a terrible thing, but it's giving me time to reflect and understand, the inner workings of the business, which I didn't really focus on. I just, you're out there hustling every day trying
Just
to get
get
stuff
stuck in.
done. Yeah, and then
Mm.
you don't really look back and say, okay, to your point, what has worked, what's helped drive revenue, and so on. Um, so interesting point. Um,
Mm.
I could go on all day, but I know you're probably got something next coming up. I find this very helpful. How can people get in touch with you? I mean, obviously we talked about LinkedIn, but where else can people find out what you do?
Yeah, so our website, knowltonmarketing.co.uk, that's my surname, marketing.co.uk. That has, talks about what we do and links to all our socials and stuff. So yeah, that's probably the easiest place to find us.
Awesome. Well, Dan, I really, really appreciate it. And if you're watching this and you found it helpful, please do feel free to share it. It's one of the most entertaining. I haven't laughed this long in a while, so
Oh, good. Thanks, mate. This has been fun.
I really enjoyed it. We'll have to do part 2. But with that said, I just want to say thanks again, Dan, and we'll see everyone next time. So take care, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye, guys.
See you soon.